Ah, Mocap. Hi there, it's Andy Serkis, and welcome to the Motion Capture Studio. It's just a warehouse, really, but we've converted it into this rather marvellous high-tech space.
When I think of the fact that principal photography has come to an end, it doesn't seem like that in any sense, way, shape or form, because we're actually shooting principal photography on Kong now.
Each morning when Andy comes in, we put him into his famous blue lycra suit, which I'll have you know isn't a special sensor suit. He doesn't wear special sensors, it isn't wired up, it's just a plain lycra suit. And we put these markers on it, and the markers are little plastic balls with scotch tape wrapped around them, bright reflective scotch tape.
We could just turn it off now.
All they're designed for is to reflect the light back towards the camera. And we've got 52 cameras that track the body, and another 20 that are specially designed to track the face. Now each one of our motion capture cameras has a bright ring light around it that will shine bright light out. So as soon as they hit one of the reflective markers, it fires straight back at the camera. So it gets a single bright dot for each one of the markers that it tracks around.
I'm lit up like a Christmas tree, and that's fed into the computer, and that data is recorded. So if there's a movement, you'll see all those cameras pick up that movement.
So Andy's suit has about 60 markers on it. So between all the different cameras, you can actually track the dot in 3D. So once we capture the marker cloud, which represents where Andy is, we map that onto a human body that moves around our screen. And from there, we have a char map that maps a character onto whatever target we want, in this case Kong. And Kong, of course, has got very different proportions to Andy.
The biggest challenges we're going to have is going to be retargeting Andy's motion onto Kong, because they are built so different.
All these dots are assigned to specific markers on the Kong CG puppet.
That's me. Because I really am as ripped as that little guy.
So this next process will map the human motion that Andy provides onto Kong. So as Andy's actually acting this out, we get to see Kong on the screen, and that's shown in real time to the directors who are watching it from the different camera angles we're going to use for the actual shot. So they can see in a second if Andy's performance as Kong is going to match the shot that they want.
And that's the beauty of having real-time playback, is that you can actually learn about the character and the way you're puppeteering that character. As it, you know, you can come back and look at it immediately, and then your emotional memory kind of goes, right, okay, that works or that doesn't work, and you make the adjustments.
There's some kind of cool moves that are interesting in there, where you're trying to do some of this stuff is looking kind of neat.
What we're discovering here is a lot of the writing of the character, a lot of the understanding of the character. It's a very physical space, it's a very experimental space. Philippa and Fran are in here rewriting scenes on the hoof all the time. We are here judging what is going to be dramatically appropriate. It's quite a tough challenge.
Working with Andy is really fantastic. I worked with him on the last 2 Lord of the Rings films as well, and he just brings a certain levity, shall we say, to the studio. He's certainly no airs and graces. He's really interested in everybody on the set. He has lunch with us, he hangs out with us. He's a great guy to work with, and he's just so professional on set. He just totally gets into the character of Kong before each take. He knows his gorillas inside out.
In a sense, there is no difference between motion capture and proper, normal acting. Any actor could do what I'm doing, and the way I would research a role or try and find a psychology for a character or try and find a physicality for a character, there is no difference. And I think this process will actually become part of an actor's toolkit to be able to get up and do this kind of work. It just happens to be new at the moment.
Hey, kia ora. Welcome to Weta Digital. What are you waiting for? Come on in and I'll give you a tour.
There's weird things that happen here that can't be explained.
Weta Digital is sort of like a mini film studio on its own. All the things that you have to do for live-action filmmaking have to happen here, and then some.
Weta Digital is creating all the visual effects for this film. It's been pretty full-on.
Anything that doesn't exist intact on camera, we put it together here. Things that were shot in blue screen, or miniatures, or creating characters, or computer-generated imagery. So there are departments that have to build models, build costumes. People have to deal with lighting. People have to deal with animation, rotoing, painting, touch-up, compositing, which is taking all the elements and finally fitting them all together and bring all the shots in line with each other. Really, it it encompasses anything you can think of, and we've got to do it here.
On this film, it's not just integrating CG with the live action elements. Sometimes it's integrating live action elements into CG and miniatures.
All right, so what I'm doing now is the Kong Rampage, but I gotta fix his tongue. See, it's always something.
I'm currently working on these 2 trailer shots that are supposed to be rushed out in the next week and a half or so.
So we showed Peter the swamp, and he liked it. He said, looks nice, but it probably looks too nice. He said, we need it 3 times more scarier.
Here I'm working on a track for the trailer. We're in a bit of a hurry, so we've split this up between a couple of different people.
We tend to be pretty busy all the time.
I think in the final version, the tongue's not going to be so huge.
What we've got to create here are elements big and small. I mean, obviously there's Kong.
We have to animate everything by hand, every little blink, every little gesture, every eye dart, but also getting the performance of Andy with the intensity and everything else that he put into the performance. That's like our main job. We did the same thing with Gollum.
When I'm working with the animators, which are essentially, you know, our actors for the creatures, then we get to play.
Holy shit. You have to make sure that the puppet's right, that it's gonna skin, that it's the right one with the hair. You know, then after they skin it, that the hair's not digging into the mouth, that your animation isn't making the mouth go, you know.
We're currently working on getting Kong's fur to stay with the skin as he moves through space.
It's quite a difficult thing to make cloth and hair and fur move realistically in the computer.
There's the big environments like New York City,
which is 360-degree Manhattan.
We're creating thousands of extras for New York. We're creating cars and vehicles, taxis, trams, L trains. Really anything that you would expect to see in the city, we're building it.
So my task is to take the CG city, which is absolutely amazing looking, and just give it those finishing touches to make it more photoreal.
As well as the miniature and full-scale ventures, we also have a digital boat that we've built.
Here's the CG water that we've created for that particular shot. There's, you know, the water for the approach to Skull Island. We've got to create the fog that they're sailing through. The whole ocean voyage, the water simulations, you know, technically and creatively are always very difficult things to do. Skull Island is again, a mix of fantasy and reality. We've got to create all the creatures on Skull Island, anything that you have to do to make the creatures interact with their environment.
I'm trying to do something really exciting with the tail, get it flipping through screen and stuff like that, so.
We're creating plants and jungles and foliage and things that get, you know, stepped on and trampled and broken and shattered.
Fun for the whole family.
We've got to create costumes for all the digital doubles. We have to create the digital doubles. All the main actors have a digital double for some of the action scenes, things that are, you know, too impossible to film.
We have a little dinosaur sequence in the movie that there's quite a bit of interaction, quite a bit of running.
There's going to be a lot of running and a lot of biting. That's what we do.
But here's the perspective. People have like one shot they're worried about or a couple of shots they're worried about and they're working on them and they love them and their shots are beautiful. But they're like working on a couple of shots as opposed to like Pete working on the whole movie. So you think of like the mind load and we can handle it, you know, a couple of shots.
Everything we do, no matter how much we have done before, is always a challenge. And so far, we're doing really well.
Today, we've got 25 weeks to go before the film's on the screen. That probably gives us about 20 weeks to finish the movie. So that sounds like plenty of time. Maybe I'll take a few days off. Yeah.
So this doesn't look like much at the moment, but this is our A stage and we're 22 weeks out from the premiere of this film. We've just got a couple of little bits and pieces to get together for the Weta Digital guys, so come on in and we'll show you what's going on in the Elements unit.
You'd be amazed at how much film we go through on things like dirt and rocks. It's crazy.
We'll go with big rubber rocks to begin with.
And action,
So this is the fascinating world of the Elements unit, and we're about trees breaking and dust blowing and rocks rolling down hills. That will all be composited later.
And action!
If you have real elements that work, that always gives you that extra bit of connection you need between digital produced stuff and the live action elements.
For example, the sequence takes place in a sort of a swampy environment, and a lot of it's sort of going to be on flat ground here. So what we can do is we can shoot sand elements being displaced by various implements, you know, a rake or some sort of prod or a swinging pendulum that can just, you know, knock spray everywhere, and then actually isolate that element off of the blue screen and comp it into the shot, get it under his foot, get some spray coming out of the T-Rex's under his foot.
And the gorge is a bit trickier because we don't have much dust. It's sort of a humid climate. It's a lot of rock surface. So we have to be a bit more elaborate about how to make this foot contact work. Foot contact is basically one of the most crucial things in this whole sequence because you see a lot of big Bronto feet touching the ground, stomping right in front of camera. And if you don't see any reaction to that, the audience is not going to buy it.
If you were to just look at any of these elements when they were shot, you know, if you take a cricket bat and just whack the sand, it would just be this really small spray. Because essentially, you know, you're talking about something maybe just an event happening that big, but if you shoot that at 48 or 60 or 72 or 96 FPS, suddenly this little spray can look like a mountain of earth being disrupted, you know, and then you actually play it off like it is coming from, you know, Kong's foot, who could actually grab a human being, you know.
And a lot of the times it actually looks better, you know. We get a real looking effect, and yeah, it's quick. They can be here and have input into the look of it straight away, and you know, at the end of the day, they've got finished composite pieces.
I think we went into this thinking very generic because there's a whole lot of the film that hasn't even been turned over to us yet, as far as the effects are concerned. And considering the amount of stuff that we shot, hopefully we'll have enough in the bank for what's coming down the road.
So that's it. That's pretty much wraps up the Elements unit. Hopefully we've got what they need, and maybe I'll see you again in a couple of weeks, and we've got some pickups going on with our fabulous cast.
Oh, hello. 16 weeks to go, and it's very busy. It doesn't look very busy at the moment because I'm sitting here talking to the video diary. But the real work is obviously happening very much in the digital department at the moment, and one of the most busy areas of the digital world is the rotoscope and paint department. So we thought we would devote our production diary this week to genuine unsung heroes. These are the people that make the shots look as good as they look. They take them and they do what they need to do to have them ready for Kong or creatures or backgrounds to be inserted in.
Behind me, I'd like a big killer whale that jumps over the ship, and I don't even notice it.
It's a majorly important cleanup and preparation department in the digital world.
Rotoscoping is the manual process of cutting out things that we don't want in the frame and leaving only what we want.
So essentially you can think of roto as like a digital cookie cutter. Tedious digital cookie cutter.
What tends to happen if a director is under pressure or stressed by making the day is you tend to say, don't worry about the blue screen, don't worry, we haven't got time, we'll shoot it and they'll fix it with the roto later. Well, these are the team that do the fixing later.
We will work on 98% of the shots that are in the movie of King Kong.
This is what the shot looks like when you first open it. This is when you usually have your moment to yourself, cry or whatever. And you realize you have to roto each of these edges here.
I hope we're not killing their enthusiasm by all the horrible shots that we're throwing at them. I mean, we have roto shots from hell on this movie.
Normally the hardest things to rotoscope are hair and plants, long frilly plants, because they don't have a regular shape and their movement is totally illogical.
When I first got this shot, I looked at it, I played it back like this and thought, oh, that's not too bad. Look, it's just Anne running. You know, shouldn't be too hard. And then I realized, oh, there's all these leaves. That's when my jaw hit the ground.
It's incredibly intricate, fine work that has to happen. I'm sure the roto artists must suffer psychological problems.
You know, we don't get to jump around the room acting like forest animals or anything. Or when I go outside and take a walk, you see these trees and plants at the side of the road, kind of catch myself imaginatively drawing lines around them. You know, one of the hazards of the job that they don't tell you about.
Lots of people focus and concentrating while they carefully separate all these images that the director was too lazy to do on the day with a green screen or a blue screen. So I'm very sorry about that.
We understand that's the process. It's all about getting the shots done so they can get home and start a whole new day the next day. So that's the roto part. We also do paint,
Generally in paint, what we're supposed to be doing is removing things that aren't supposed to be there.
They have to paint things out like reflections and windows. That would be through the windows, obviously, in that case. That's not a very good thing, hard to fix.
For example, it's on the back wall, it's over this window, and probably worst of all, it's actually sitting on the window over the smudges. So it's not going to be easy.
That's what we're here for. That's our job. All our work is unseen. If you saw what we did, that means we've made a mistake.
Well, I've got a few shots coming up that they haven't even seen yet, so we'll put them to the test. I've got a couple of tricky ones up my sleeve, saving them to the last minute.
Scary stuff, Peter, scary.
"14 weeks to go, don't panic." Now, this week, we're just going to have a look at things that are happening in the digital department. And one of the interesting things that they're actually doing, which is quite an advancement on the work we did for Lord of the Rings, is in the area of digital doubles. It's tough to shoot live action interaction with creatures that are that big, but with digital doubles, it opens up a whole lot of opportunities to do interesting things.
Digital double is basically a high-tech stunt double for a character. So we'll put it into scenes where either it has to do something that a normal human would be killed in.
Like Kong picks somebody up, or a car takes somebody out on the street. It also allows us to put actors into sets and environments that we never were able to build because they'd be too big. And it's much easier to use digital people rather than to have to shoot actors in front of blue screens and somehow fit them in, because that process has limitations. And yet with digital doubles, you're really unlimited in what you want to do. And there's obviously a digital double and all the lead cast. Our actors came, they shot the movie, and they went home again. But we can still do shots with our actors because we scanned them.
We've set up a studio to take pictures of all the principal actors so that we can use the textures and put those onto the digital doubles that we're going to create. And then we can do horrible things with them, and it'll look just like they're the real actors.
All right, so it appears that I have officially been cloned. I think I'm going to go have lunch.
We need to get a really good performance because it's not enough to have the digital double just walk around with a fixed expression on their face.
Previs man, a winner every time. Can't beat Previs man.
Creating a digital double, it takes many departments within the facility to do so. Starts with modeling. The creature department goes to textures and shader department for the cloth simulations, the skin textures. Then it goes to lighting, where we're lighting the digital doubles into the shot and making sure that it looks seamless.
For the digital doubles, it's always a little bit more tricky because you want to be sure that they look exactly like the actors that you shot. So we have to be perfect. There is no room for freedom and creativity and imagination too much. And it starts from creating a perfect replica of her face and her body. We scan her face, and that's what we're using. So at the end of that process, you just end up with a gray version of her. We have people with Photoshop and 3D paint tools who actually created textures for her.
Painting Naomi has been it's been the biggest challenge that I've done because she's got beautiful skin, so it's very hard to replicate someone whose skin is so good. But then there's also the one slip. First of all, it's clean, and then she gets wet, and then it gets torn, and then it gets a bit more torn, and then it gets dirtier. So we have to match, you know, every little nuance.
You also have people at the same time working on the animation rig, so people who are going to decide where the bones are, where the muscles are.
First step with digidoubles is having a way for the animators to put motion onto them, and for that we need a low-res puppet. Basically it acts a little like a marionette. You're able to grab the various controls that we've added and pose the puppet.
So we'll take a kind of naked digital double and put clothing on them and make it kind of look natural.
And that's what they give me. And I use those textures to make her believable. So at the end of that, she looks like a perfect replica of Naomi Watts with the proper colors for her skin and the proper hair as well.
For someone like Anne, who's such a feature throughout the movie, and you know, we don't want to throw her off a cliff, and you know, we don't want to do anything dreadful to her, but we can do it to the digital double.
We come up with crazy stories, and the technology allows us to, you know, today to create them.
Of course, digital doubles will never replace actors. I mean, that's the big fear, and I think it's a lot of old nonsense, really, when people say, oh, well, you know, we won't need actors anymore, we've got digital people. But, you know, digital people don't have hearts and souls, and they can't provide everything that an actor can provide in a performance.
It's you.
Kia ora, welcome to the motion capture stage. It's 11 weeks to go till the movie comes out, but only 5 or 6 weeks until Weta Digital has to get all its visual effects shots, so fingers crossed. This week we're looking at the way that we bring King Kong to life, and there's 2 ways we do that. We do that with mocap and we do that with animation. This week we're looking at the motion capture and especially the motion edit side. So it all starts here in the motion capture stage. We put a lot of dots on Andy.
Andy, how old are you today?
21.
That's gorilla years.
Times like this, you really do wonder what you're doing with your life.
Andy does a particular performance. We take the pattern of dots, which the motion capture cameras see. We can figure out where those markers are moving in 3D, and from that pattern we figure out what muscle groups in his face are moving. And then those muscle groups in his face, we have a mapping from those to King Kong's face. And it turns out that humans and gorillas have quite a similar musculature.
The motion editing process involves taking the data that is captured on the day when Andy's performing on the motion capture stage, and then it's refined, cleaned up and enhanced so that, you know, he feels like a 24-foot gorilla rather than an actor.
And once the data of Andy is polished and looking good, we have to retarget it on Kong.
A lot of the data that we get from motion capture, a lot of times it needs extra tweaks.
They typically either need to polish the performance of Andy or change it, modify it.
There is quite a few shots where they do require a bit of performance change, which we can handle, like they don't have to go straight into animation.
And one of the neatest things about Mark software, which is the actual brain behind this whole thing, is that it analyzes Andy Serkis's performance. It looks at how his face is moving as human, and then translates that as to how it would work as a gorilla.
There's a lot of great performance we get sort of in the first pass of the facial capture through the eyes and the brows. But the area that needs usually the most work is around the muzzle.
We're using this type of system just so we could have some type of human interaction with that data after it goes through that translation. These muscle groups are what kind of make him angry. So if we increase them, he becomes angrier. And then we trigger the muscles that make him happy. Let's furrow his brows a little bit more. We start getting that kind of worried anxiety look in his face. And again, it would be the same performance, just different muscles creating that emotion.
I'm just trying to adjust a few muscles that maybe weren't picked up as good in the motion captures. You can see he kind of starts, he's really, really angry and wound up, and then he suddenly lost it. So basically the transition doesn't exist, which is something I had to add. And just trying to keep the tension on the eyes. And one good thing that we get through the mocap is the realistic eye movement.
When you're looking up and down, you're deforming your lid because the eyeball is not perfect sphere and it's pulling. There is a friction, so it's pulling the eyelids. We could transfer this into eye direction, into gazing. It worked really well. If the thing looks good, it doesn't really matter if it's motion capture or if it's animation. So as long as the mocap is used where it really fits, it's a great tool.
So hopefully that gave you, a little insight into one of the ways we're approaching creating Kong's performance, which is through motion capture and motion editing. And next week we'll be looking at keyframe animation, which is another one of the ways we've helped to bring Kong to life. Following on from last week, we're going to look at the animation department, which is where a great deal of Kong has been brought to life for the screen. It's the 5th of October, and animation has actually 4 weeks left to deliver all the animation for the show. I think Carl Denham had an easier job trying to make his movie.
On this production, just like on a lot of the big visual effects shows now, there's 2 main ways of getting your animation. Mocap, which stands for motion capture, or keyframe animation.
For Kong, there are a lot of aspects of his performance that were designed and created and explored on the mocap stage, but to actually bring him to the screen with the flexibility that we need to give Peter what he wants and the changes that he wants to make, a lot of Kong has been created through keyframe animation.
I'm setting some keyframes right now.
Use keyframe animation
you animate key poses of the animation that you're most interested in to start with.
And that may be one pose every second. So you may work out this pose, and then this pose a second later.
The computer can help me to work out what's going to happen in between.
So by working out your different in-betweens between your key poses, you can work out forms and dynamic. And you can build your shot that way.
Go change it. I will. I hope I get an approval tomorrow.
The mocap is great because it's the performance that Pete wants, but the motion capture that they did can't really get every little, you know, brow and nuance. So what the motion capture can't do, we can do by hand, which is the, you know, the keyframing of the face, and give it some nice little subtleties.
We look at ourselves in the mirror, looking for small subtleties and little muscles around the nose, like nose flaring. Less is more, you know, and just creating something very subtle is probably the most difficult thing to do. So the simple things that you think you see on the screen are actually the hardest.
An animator will therefore do a lot of technical stuff, but you know, we try and bring in a lot of performance stuff and physicalizing things and acting it out.
Animators, we act out our shots whenever we're not sure about really the physicality and we want to get like inside the mind and inside the body of Kong. It makes it a lot easier to get your shot done and to get it done quickly.
Cam here is going to be the Tyrannosaurus Rex. I'm going to play King Kong.
Take a bite at Anne.
Yeah.
All right.
Peter's telling a fantasy here. Yes, we want the power, we want the physics, we want the believability, but we want to be able to go to a more kind of a magical world, add a little spice into things.
The thing is with dinosaurs is that nobody really knows how they're supposed to move, so you can take a few liberties there.
And we do use reference for that. The reference for a T-Rex, generally speaking, you know, you look at ostriches for leg movement, but I also like to go into the feline world. You can get their tails, you know, when they get angry or they, you know, sense something out there, they can have that focus, and then the tail starts to whip, and it becomes a part of the performance. And that's not going by any kind of paleontology. That's completely fantasizing it, but it makes it more powerful and it makes it stronger.
I think a lot of the animators are being challenged more than they have before.
The premiere is on the 4th of December, and everyone's here 7 days a week, cranking, trying to get it all done.
It's been a lot of hard work, a lot of good hard work.
I'm just trying to work out the physics of a gorilla. It's 25 foot tall, chasing a cab.
What's a good animator? A good animator, nothing phases them.
So, I'm sorry, what was your question?
Back toward it.